Nova Academy floated like a shining diamond in space. It was the most famous school on the Orion Station, where only the best and richest students studied. The school had the latest technology, big glass halls, and learning pods that could fly. But inside those fancy walls, some students thought they were better than others. In the middle of all this, a new teacher arrived. His name was Rick. Rick was not tall, not strong-looking, and didn't wear the usual bright uniforms of Nova Academy. He wore a simple black coat, plain trousers, and a silver wristband with no fancy lights. His face was calm, his eyes always half closed like he was thinking about something far away. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost like a whisper. He was going to teach a new subject called galactic ethics. Most students didn't even know what that meant. They just thought it would be boring, especially a boy named Dren. Dren was the leader of a group of boys who called themselves the Core Stars. They were rich, proud, and loved making fun of anyone who looked weak. When Dren first saw Rick standing quietly in the main hall, holding a small bag, he laughed. "Is that our new teacher? He looks like a cleaner who lost his way," Dren said loudly, and his friends laughed with him. Rick heard them but didn't say anything. He just smiled, nodded at the boys, and walked to the staff room. First day. First target, the first class with Rick was in Learning Hall 7, a big round room with floating chairs and hologram boards. Students were curious at first, waiting to see what this strange teacher would do. "Good morning, students," Rick said softly. "Today we will talk about choices. Every choice you make changes the future, not just yours, everyone's." Dren rolled his eyes and whispered to his friend Core, "He talks like my grandpa." Rick continued as if he didn't hear them. He asked simple questions like, "What is right? And is the law always correct?" Most students didn't answer, thinking it was a trick, but Rick didn't force anyone. He just smiled and said, "Silence is also an answer." After class, Dren was not happy. "He thinks he's clever? We'll show him how smart we are," Dren said, making plans. First prank the next morning, Rick opened his locker to find it filled with slime. Bright green, sticky slime that dripped onto his shoes. Students in the hall laughed. Dren and his friends were hiding behind a pillar, watching. Rick looked at the slime. He didn't get angry. He didn't even look around to see who did it. He simply took out a small cloth from his bag and wiped his shoes. Then he closed the locker and went to his class like nothing happened. This confused Dren. "He's pretending." "He's too scared to react," Dren said. But his friends were not so sure. "Maybe he didn't see us?" Core suggested. Dren's pride was hurt. He wanted Rick to get angry, to shout, to run to the principal. But Rick's calmness was like a mirror, showing Dren his own childish games. Locked in the supply pod, Dren didn't give up. On the third day, he and his gang waited for Rick to go into the supply pod, a small room where teachers kept teaching materials. Once Rick went inside, Dren quietly locked the door from the outside. "Let's see how long the quiet teacher stays quiet in there," Dren laughed. Minutes passed. Students walked by, unaware of the prank. Dren was waiting to hear Rick banging on the door, asking for help, but no sound came. After a few more minutes, Dren went to the door to listen. Suddenly, the door clicked and opened. Rick walked out calmly, holding a box of teaching cubes. "Oh, was the door stuck?" "Thank you for waiting," Rick said, nodding politely at Dren. Dren's mouth opened in shock, but no words came out. "How did Rick get out?" The lock was still in place. It was impossible. From the end of the hall, an old janitor named Morrow was sweeping the floor. He had been at Nova Academy for over 20 years. He watched the scene and shook his head slowly. "Young ones should be careful," Morrow muttered to himself. "Some teachers teach with books, some with something sharper." A teacher who smiled in the following days, Rick continued to teach as if nothing strange had happened. His classes became more interesting. He told stories of ancient space travelers who chose peace over war. He spoke of small acts of kindness that saved entire planets. Slowly, a few students began to listen, but Dren's group didn't stop. They called Rick names behind his back. They spread rumors that Rick was a fake teacher who bought his job with money. Yet no matter what they did, Rick never reacted. He always smiled and said, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts." This made Dren even angrier. One evening, as the school emptied, Dren stood by the observation deck, looking at the stars. Kor joined him. Why does he never get angry? Dren asked, more to himself. Maybe he doesn't care, Kor said. No, Dren said, shaking his head. He's hiding something. The calm before the storm that night, Dren made a new plan. If small pranks didn't work, he would do something big. Something that would make Rick show his true face in front of the whole school. He didn't know what yet, but he promised himself he would find a way. As for Rick, he sat quietly in his small quarters, looking at an old, worn-out photo. It showed a younger version of himself, wearing a mask, standing in front of a ship, with the symbol of a broken blade. He placed the photo back into a hidden compartment of his wristband and whispered, "I hope you never meet the man I used to be, Dren." Nova Academy was always busy during the day. Students rushed to classes, teachers discussed lessons, and cleaning bots moved along the shiny floors. But after school hours, when the halls were quiet, strange whispers began to float around. Whispers were about Rick, the new teacher. Did you hear? He has no records, one student said. No school, no family, nothing. It's like he appeared from nowhere, another added. In a place like Nova Academy, where every student's history was checked twice, a teacher with no past was a mystery. Some students thought Rick was just a private man. Others believed he was hiding something, and Dren was sure of it. Dren's obsession. Dren couldn't stop thinking about Rick. Every prank, every joke had failed. Rick never got angry, never even frowned. It was as if nothing could touch him. He's acting, Dren said to his gang as they sat in the recreation hall. No one is that calm. He's hiding his real face. Kor looked uneasy. Maybe he's just different. Not everyone reacts like us. Dren shook his head. I'll find out the truth. We'll dig into his past. But the Academy's files are locked. Only the council can see them, Kor reminded him. Then we'll look somewhere else, Dren said, his eyes shining with determination. A dangerous search that night. Dren and Kor sneaked into the school's old records room. Most of the data was stored digitally, but some ancient files were still kept in this dusty corner of the Academy. While Kor kept watch, Dren searched through old holodisks. Hours passed and they found nothing, but just as Dren was about to give up, a small disk with the label Orion Syndicate Case Files caught his eye. He inserted it into a projector. The image of a masked figure appeared. The figure wore black armor with a silver blade symbol on the chest. His face was hidden, but his eyes were cold, sharp, and merciless. This is Ghostblade, the voice in the file said. Once a high-level enforcer for the Orion Syndicate, responsible for dismantling rival gangs, taking down pirate fleets, and carrying out secret missions. Status: unknown. Dren's eyes widened. He zoomed in on the masked figure. The eyes, they were the same as Rick's. It can't be. Kor whispered, but Dren smiled. Now we know why he's so calm. He's a criminal pretending to be a teacher. Morrow knows. The next day, Dren walked through the hallways with a new sense of power. He had discovered Rick's secret. He felt like a hero uncovering a villain's mask. He passed by the old janitor Morrow, who was sweeping as usual. Young Dren, Morrow said without looking up, you've been busy at night. Dren stopped. You know, don't you? Morrow nodded slowly. I know many things, boy. Rick's past is not a secret to those who see with open eyes. Then why is he here? Why would the Academy hire a criminal? Dren asked. Morrow looked up, his old eyes sharp. Because sometimes, a man who has walked through darkness can teach others to stay in the light. Dren frowned. He didn't understand. He's dangerous. Morrow smiled. Only if you push him to be. The next move, even after hearing Morrow's words, Dren's mind was set. He couldn't stand the idea of a former criminal teaching him about ethics. He wanted Rick to admit the truth, to show his real face in front of everyone. That day in class, Dren raised his hand. "Teacher Rick, do you believe bad people can become good?" he asked, pretending to be innocent. Rick smiled gently. "I believe every person has the power to choose who they become." Dren leaned forward. "Even if they were once criminals?" The class became silent. All eyes turned to Rick. Rick's smile didn't fade. "Yes, even then. But it's harder because people don't easily forgive. Even if the person has changed." Dren's heart raced. Rick wasn't denying it. He was speaking carefully, but Dren could sense the hidden meaning. Prank turns dangerous. Dren wanted more. He wanted to expose Rick in front of the whole school. His next plan was bigger. He hacked into the Academy's drone display system, the one used during school assemblies to show light shows and holographic images. He planned to upload a fake video showing Rick as Ghostblade during the upcoming assembly. Everyone would see Rick's criminal past. He would have no place to hide. Cor was nervous. "Dren, this is serious. If we get caught, we won't," Dren said. "This is the only way." The quiet before the storm. As the assembly day came closer, Rick continued his classes as usual. He noticed Dren's glances, the whispering, but said nothing. One evening, as Rick was leaving, "Are you ready, Rick?" Morrow asked. Rick nodded. "I hope it doesn't come to that." Morrow sighed. "Boys like Dren learn the hard way. Just don't let the old Ghostblade take over." Rick smiled, a sad smile. "I buried him a long time ago. But some lessons need stronger teaching." Dren's confidence. Dren felt proud of his plan. The assembly would be in the grand hall with hundreds of students, teachers, and guests. Once the video played, Rick's secret would be out. No more pretending, Rick, Dren said to himself as he walked back to his dorm. "Let's see you smile after this." But deep inside, a small part of Dren felt uneasy. He remembered Rick's calm eyes, his soft words, and Morrow's warning. Still, his pride pushed him forward. The stage was set. The players were ready. The past was about to break into the present. The Grand Assembly Hall of Nova Academy was filled with students, teachers, and important guests. The walls were made of clear glass, showing the stars outside. Floating drones hovered above the stage, ready to display the Academy's yearly presentation. It was a big day. But for Dren, it was the day his plan would work. He sat in the front row with his friends, hiding a small control pad under his cloak. His heart was racing. He had hacked into the drone display system. Once the headmaster finished his speech, the drones would show the video of Rick as Ghostblade. Everyone would see Rick's true face. The assembly begins. The headmaster, a tall man named Torvin, stepped onto the stage. His voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome, students and honored guests. Today, we celebrate Nova Academy's achievements and look forward to a brighter future." Students clapped politely. Dren barely listened. His eyes were on Rick, who stood quietly at the side of the hall, holding a tablet. Rick seemed calm, as always, watching the students with a soft smile. Dren's fingers hovered over the control pad. "Just a few more minutes," he whispered to Cor. "The prank starts." As the headmaster finished his speech, the drones began to move. They formed shapes in the air: stars, planets, and the Academy's crest. The crowd watched in amazement. That was the moment Dren pressed the button. Suddenly, the drones stopped their patterns. The hall's lights flickered. A large hologram appeared above the stage. It showed a masked figure dressed in black armor, with a silver blade on his chest. A deep voice played over the speakers. "Ghostblade, enforcer of the Orion Syndicate. A man of shadows. Gasps filled the hall. Teachers looked around, confused. The students murmured. Rick stood still, his expression unchanged. Dren smiled. Now let's see you explain this, Rick. The situation turns bad, but something was wrong. The drones began to spark. The hologram glitched. Then, without warning, the drones started to fall. From the sky. One crashed into a chair, another into the stage. Sparks flew everywhere. A loud alarm rang. The hacked system had overloaded the drone circuits. What's happening? Core shouted. I only wanted the video. This wasn't supposed to happen. Dren said, panic rising. The drones, now out of control, flew wildly, heading towards the crowd. Students screamed. Teachers tried to guide them to safety, but the drones were too fast. One drone sped towards a group of younger students. The protective shields hadn't activated yet. That's when Rick moved. Rick steps in with incredible speed. Rick dashed across the hall. His movements were smooth, sharp, and precise. He leapt onto the chairs, avoiding the crashing drones, and reached the group of students just in time. With a flick of his wrist, his silver wristband projected a small energy field, blocking the drone's impact. Rick's other hand moved swiftly, pressing hidden buttons on the wristband. The nearby drones froze mid-air, as if an invisible hand had grabbed them. The hall became silent. All eyes were on Rick, standing calmly among the floating drones, his wristband glowing softly. The truth comes out. The headmaster stepped forward. Teacher Rick, what is going on? Rick looked at the students, then at the teachers. His calm smile remained. There was a system breach. The drones were hacked. But I stopped them. He didn't say who hacked them. He didn't look at Dren, but Dren felt like Rick was speaking directly to him. Morrow, the old janitor, appeared near the back of the hall, shaking his head. I warned you, boy, he muttered, but only Core heard him. The headmaster ordered the drones to be shut down manually. Teachers guided the students back to their seats. The assembly continued, but the mood had changed. The principal's office later that day. Dren was called to the principal's office. Rick was there too, standing quietly near the window. Principal Torvin looked serious. Dren, we know it was you. The system logs show your access code. Do you understand how dangerous this prank was? Dren lowered his head. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Torvin's voice softened. You're lucky no one got hurt. But actions have consequences. Before Torvin could say more, Rick spoke. Principal, if I may? Torvin nodded. Rick turned to Dren. His voice was gentle but firm. Dren, you wanted to show everyone my past, didn't you? Dren's face turned red. You're Ghostblade. You're a criminal. You shouldn't be teaching us. Rick smiled. You're right. I was Ghostblade. I did things I'm not proud of. But that's not who I am now. I chose to change. That's why I'm here to teach you that choices matter. Dren clenched his fists. You're just pretending to be good. Rick's eyes softened. Maybe, but every day, I choose to be better. That's the hardest battle of all. Torvin watched the exchange in silence. Then he spoke. Dren, you will receive punishment. But Rick is right. This is a lesson for all of us. No charges, only lessons. Rick surprised everyone by not pressing formal charges against Dren. He acted out of ignorance, not evil. Punishment should teach, not destroy, Rick said. Torvin agreed. But Dren was still given a week of cleaning duty under Morrow's supervision. His hacking privileges were revoked for a month. As Dren left the office, Rick called after him. Dren, I'm giving you a choice. You can stay angry, or you can learn. Dren didn't answer. He just walked away, his thoughts swirling. The academy. Whispers news of the assembly incident spread through Nova Academy like wildfire. Students whispered about Rick's past, but they also spoke about how he saved the school without harming anyone. Some students began to respect him. Others were still unsure. Dren felt confused. His plan had failed. Yet he wasn't punished harshly. Rick had protected him from worse consequences. For the first time, Dren began to question his own actions. The calm teacher Rick continued his classes as if nothing had happened. He spoke about peace, choices, and how strength was not in fists but in patience. But now, when Rick spoke, more students listened, even Dren. Though he sat at the back, he no longer laughed at Rick's words. He watched carefully, trying to understand. The man who had once been a feared enforcer, now standing humbly as a teacher. Days passed after the assembly incident, but Nova Academy was still buzzing with whispers. Did you see how Rick stopped the drones? They say he was once a top fighter for a crime syndicate. No way, he's too calm for that. But deep down, every student who was in the grand hall knew Rick was not an ordinary teacher. The way he moved, the way he controlled the drones, it was not something a normal person could do. Even Dren, who had once been so sure of Rick's guilt, now felt unsure. Dren's confusion. Dren sat in the cafeteria with Core and their other friends. The usual loud voices were softer today. The group was uneasy. He could have reported you, Core said, biting into his food. But he didn't. He even saved us. Dren didn't respond. Another friend, Maiko, leaned in. Maybe Rick is not a bad guy anymore, Dren frowned. People like him don't change. They hide, I'm sure of it. But his own words felt weak. The truth was, Rick had every chance to punish Dren, but chose not to. Still, Dren couldn't accept it. I'll prove it, Dren said suddenly. I'll make him show his real face. The council meeting. While Dren made plans, the school council held a private meeting. Only the top leaders and Rick were present. Principal Torvin spoke first. Rick, the council wants to know why your past was hidden from us. We had no record of you before 5 years ago, Rick stood calmly. That's because I was under deep cover for a long time. I worked for the Orion Syndicate, but later, I helped dismantle their network. A council member, Lady Vorn, narrowed her eyes. Why would a man with such a violent past want to become a teacher? Rick smiled softly. Because I've seen what violence does. I wanted to guide the young before they walk the same path I did. Another council member, Master Solon, leaned forward. Your actions during the assembly were impressive. But they showed skills we don't see in teachers. I use my skills now to protect, not to harm, Rick replied. Torvin raised his hand. Enough. Rick has proven his loyalty through actions. The council will watch, but for now he stays. Dren's obsession grows. The next day, Dren visited the school archives again. He went deeper into the files, searching for anything about Ghost Blade. Most of the videos were blurred or hidden by security codes. But Dren found a short clip. It showed Ghost Blade fighting a group of pirates in a space dock. His moves were quick, brutal, but controlled. He didn't waste any motion. His blade never touched a pirate's heart. Only disabling blows. Dren watched the clip again and again. For a man working for criminals, Ghost Blade never killed anyone. That's not how a true criminal fights. Dren whispered, but he shook his head. No, he's just good at hiding his real nature. Planning an exposure. Dren decided the only way to expose Rick was to confront him publicly. But it had to be smart. Another prank would not work, he thought. Of the upcoming space excursion, a class trip outside the station, into a nearby asteroid field. Students would visit mining stations and learn about space operations. It was the perfect setting. If I can get him alone out there, push him into a corner, he'll have to show his real face, Dren thought. But Core, hearing the plan, was not convinced. Dren, what are you trying to do? He's not our enemy. You don't understand, Core, Dren replied, his voice cold. He's fooling all of you. Rick's conversation with Morrow. Meanwhile, Rick was sitting in a small garden area of the academy. Morrow, the old janitor, sat beside him, smoking a small pipe. Young Dren is not letting go, Morrow said, blowing smoke rings. I know, Rick replied, watching the stars. He's a stubborn one. Reminds me of someone, Morrow said with a small grin. Rick smiled. Yes, I was like him once. Always thinking I knew everything. Do you regret coming here, Rick? Morrow asked. Rick shook his head. No. Teaching peace is harder than fighting wars. But it's worth it. Morrow tapped his cane on the ground. Be ready. That boy's going to test you again. Space excursion. Announced a few days later, the school announced the space excursion. Students were excited. It was a chance to leave the station, see real asteroid mining operations, and experience space outside their protected walls. Rick was assigned as one of the supervisors for the trip. Dren smiled when he heard the news. This was his chance. He prepared a new plan. This time, there would be no hacking, no drones, no traps. He would challenge Rick face to face. A private challenge on the day before the excursion. Dren stayed after class and approached Rick. Teacher. Rick, he said, pretending to be polite. Rick looked up from his tablet. Yes, Dren? I wanted to ask about choices, Dren said, hiding his true intention. You said people can change. But what if someone forces them back to their old ways? Rick's eyes softened. Then that person is not trying to help. They're trying to control. Dren smiled slightly. We'll see. Rick watched him walk away. He knew the storm was coming. A quiet night before chaos that night. Dren couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with thoughts of Rick. He remembered Rick's calm face, his soft words, and his unmatched skills. Tomorrow, we'll see who you really are, Dren whispered to himself. But in his heart, a strange feeling was growing. Was he proving Rick's guilt, or was he afraid of being wrong? The day of the space excursion arrived. Students of Nova Academy gathered near Docking Bay 4, wearing special suits for space travel. Excitement filled the air as they prepared to visit the Orion asteroid field, a place where giant mining ships drilled for rare metals. Among the students, Dren stood quietly, watching Rick, who was helping some younger students adjust their suits. Rick's calm nature was the same as always. But Dren believed that today, Rick's real face would be revealed. Boarding the transport ship, named Starlight Falcon, was large and built for safety. Inside, students sat in rows, with teachers walking between them to check safety belts. Kor sat beside Dren. Are you sure about this? Kor asked in a low voice. Dren didn't answer directly. His eyes stayed on Rick, who was speaking softly to the pilot, checking the ship's controls. This trip will show everyone who Rick really is, Dren muttered. Kor sighed. He didn't know if Dren's plan was brave or foolish. The journey begins. The ship left Nova Academy and entered the asteroid field. Large rocks floated lazily in space, while mining ships drilled into them with giant machines. The students watched through the windows, fascinated by the beauty and danger outside. Rick walked to the front of the cabin and spoke. Remember, stay in your seats. Space is not a place for games. Respect the rules, and you will stay safe. His voice was calm but firm. Dren smirked. Let's see how calm you stay when things go wrong, he whispered to himself. The pirates arrived suddenly. The ship's alarm blared. Red lights flashed. The pilot's voice came over the speaker. Attention! Unidentified ships approaching. Possible pirate activity. All students stay seated. Panic filled the cabin. Students looked around, frightened. Teachers tried to calm them, but the tension was rising. Through the windows, Dren saw 3 small pirate ships moving fast toward them. This wasn't part of the plan, Kor said, his face turning pale. Dren's heart pounded. He had disabled a small security grid on the ship, hoping to create a harmless accident to expose Rick. But he didn't expect real pirates to appear. What have I done? Dren whispered. The pirates board the ship within minutes. The pirates hacked into the ship's docking system. The airlock doors opened and 5 armed pirates entered. They wore dark suits with glowing red visors. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his chin, stepped forward. "Stay in your seats, kids. We're only here for a little prize money," the pirate leader said with a mocking grin. Teachers stood in front of the students, trying to block the pirates' path, but they were unarmed. The pirate leader laughed. "Step aside. No one gets hurt if you behave." But then Rick stepped forward. Rick's transformation. Rick didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply walked towards the pirates with slow, steady steps. "Leave now," Rick said softly. The pirates laughed. "And who's going to stop us, you?" The leader sneered. Without warning, Rick moved. It happened so fast that no one understood at first. Rick's hand grabbed a metal rod from the wall. His body turned in a fluid motion, and with a single strike, he knocked the weapon from the first pirate's hand. The pirates attacked, but Rick's movements were like a dance. He weaved between them, using their own force against them. He didn't punch to hurt. He struck to disarm. The students watched in shock as Rick disabled all 5 pirates within moments. No one was injured. No one bled. Only silence remained. Students' reaction for a long moment. The students sat frozen. Then, one by one, they started to clap. Even the teachers stood in awe. Dren's mouth was dry. His plan had gone wrong. His mistake had invited real danger. And Rick had saved them all. But Rick didn't look proud. He simply gathered the pirates' weapons and secured them in a storage locker. Rick faces Dren after the pirates were locked away. Rick walked to Dren. "Dren," Rick said, kneeling so their eyes met. "I know the security grid was disabled from inside." Dren's heart sank. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Dren whispered. "I believe you," Rick said gently. "But actions always have results, even if we don't expect them." Dren's eyes filled with tears. "I thought you were a bad person. I wanted to prove it." Rick placed a hand on Dren's shoulder. "I was a bad person, but every day I choose not to be. That's what I want to teach you." Return to Nova Academy. The ship returned to Nova Academy with an escort of security drones. The pirate attack was reported, but Rick made sure Dren's part in it was kept private. In the debrief meeting, Principal Torvin praised Rick's actions. "Your calm thinking and quick response saved many lives today, Rick." Rick simply bowed his head. "I only did what was needed." Dren's apology that evening. Dren found Rick sitting in the Academy's quiet garden. "I'm sorry, Teacher Rick," Dren said, standing awkwardly. Rick looked up and smiled. "Apology accepted, but only if you learn from it." Dren nodded. "I want to understand. How did you become like this, calm, even in danger?" Rick's smile grew softer. "Because I've seen what happens when you lose control. I made many mistakes in my past. Now I want to guide others away from that path." Dren sat beside Rick. For the first time, he didn't see a criminal. He saw a man who had fought hard to become better. A new lesson begins the next day in class. Rick spoke about the incident. Courage is not about fighting, it's about protecting. Power is not in how hard you hit, but how well you choose when not to. The students listened quietly. Dren, sitting in the front row this time, raised his hand. "Teacher Rick, can someone like me learn to choose better?" Rick smiled. "That's why we're here." After the space excursion incident, Nova Academy was not the same. Students walked through the halls with a new sense of respect. Not just for Rick, but for the lessons he had been trying to teach from the very beginning. The man they once thought was weak had shown the entire academy what true strength looked like. But the whispers didn't stop. Some students still wondered, who is Rick really? The story of Ghostblade was no longer just a rumor. Students had seen Rick's skills with their own eyes. His past was now an open secret, but no one knew the full truth. That truth was about to be revealed. The council calls Rick one morning. Principal Torvin called Rick to his office. Waiting inside were the high members of the Academy Council, Lady Vorn, Master Solon, and 2 other senior officials. Rick, Torvin began, after the recent events, the council believes it is time your past is made clear to everyone. The students deserve to know who their teacher really is. Rick nodded calmly. I agree. They should hear it from me. Lady Vorn looked at Rick with sharp eyes. We know you were once Ghostblade, an enforcer for the Orion Syndicate. What we don't understand is why a man like you chose to become a teacher. Rick smiled softly. Because I was tired of destroying. I wanted to start building. Master Solon leaned forward. You dismantled the very syndicate you worked for. Why? Rick's voice became distant, as if speaking from a memory. Because I saw what my actions created. Fear, pain, loss. I thought power was everything. But one day I realized, real power is in stopping harm, not causing it. The council listened silently. An assembly is announced later that day. The school announced a special assembly gathering. All students and staff were ordered to attend. The reason was not told, but everyone knew it had something to do with RIK. In the student dorms. Dren sat quietly, thinking about what Rick would say. Kor entered the room. Are you going to the assembly? Dren nodded. I have to. Kor smiled. You know, I think you're becoming a better student now. Dren gave a small laugh. Maybe Rick's lessons finally got through my thick skull. The assembly hall fills again. The grand hall was packed. Students whispered to each other. Teachers stood waiting. And the council members sat at the front. Finally, Rick walked onto the stage. He didn't wear a fancy suit or a badge of honor. Just his usual simple black coat. But today, the entire academy was silent, listening to him. Rick stood in front of the crowd and spoke. Rick's story. My name is Rick, he began. But many of you have heard the name Ghostblade. The students remained quiet. It's true. Years ago, I worked for the Orion Syndicate. I was trained to fight, to hurt, to control others. I was good at it. Too good. He paused, letting the words sink in. But one day, I saw a small colony destroyed because of a mission I completed. I was told it was necessary, that it was business. But when I looked at the faces of those who lost their homes, I felt hollow. Rick's eyes scanned the students. That was the moment I knew I had become something I hated. He continued, I left the syndicate. But leaving wasn't enough. I worked with the authorities to bring them down. After that, I had a choice. Disappear, or do something better. I chose to teach. Students' reactions for a moment. The hall remained silent. Then, a student from the back stood up. You saved us during the pirate attack. You didn't have to. Why risk yourself? Rick smiled. Because I don't want you to make the mistakes I did. I want you to understand that strength is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Another student asked. But aren't you still dangerous? Rick nodded. Yes, my skills haven't vanished. But now I use them to protect. The past never leaves you. But you can choose not to be its prisoner. Dren stands up. Dren stood up, his heart pounding. Teacher Rick, he said loudly. I was the one who hacked the drones during the assembly. I caused the system breach during the excursion. I tried to expose you because I believed you were a danger to us. Gasps filled the hall. Dren continued, but I was wrong. You saved us, even when you had no reason to. I wanted you to be a villain, but you showed me what a real hero looks like. Dren's voice softened. I'm sorry. Rick smiled warmly. Thank you, Dren. Admitting a mistake is harder than any fight. A new beginning. Principal Torvin stood and addressed the academy. Today, we have learned that a person's past does not define who they are. Actions do. Rick has shown us courage, humility, and wisdom. These are the values Nova Academy stands for. The students clapped, slowly at first, then louder, until the hall echoed with applause. Rick bowed his head, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Later in the garden, that evening, Rick sat in the academy garden. The stars above twinkled softly. Dren approached and sat beside him. "I've been thinking, Teacher Rick," Dren began. "You said it's harder to stop a fight than to start one." "I never understood that. Until now," Rick smiled. "It's a lesson many never learn, but you have." Dren looked up at the stars. "I want to help others learn it too," Rick nodded. "Good, then your real training begins." A teacher's legacy. From that day on, Rick became more than just a teacher at Nova Academy. He became a mentor. Not just to Dren, but to many students who once thought strength was about pride and power. Dren and his former gang slowly changed. They became protectors of younger students, guiding them with the lessons Rick had taught. The name Ghostblade faded away, replaced by something greater. Teacher Rick. The weeks after Rick's truth had come out were quiet, but full of change at Nova Academy. The students who once laughed at Rick or doubted him began to see him differently. And among those who changed the most were the bullies, led by Dren. Dren was no longer the same boy who had tried to expose Rick. He was quieter, thoughtful, and more careful with his words. He had started to understand the true meaning of strength and respect. A new challenge one afternoon. While Rick was teaching a class about teamwork and respect, Dren's old gang came to him. They looked nervous. "Dren, we need to talk," said Core, stepping forward. Dren nodded and led them outside, away from the classroom. "We've been thinking," Core said. "We were wrong to pick on Rick, but what about the other students? There are still kids being bullied." Dren looked around. It was true. In the hallways, some younger students still hid from others who teased them. "Maybe we can change that," Dren said slowly. The plan. Dren and his friends decided to make a new start. They would become protectors, not bullies. They would stop the teasing and help younger students feel safe. But it wouldn't be easy. The group met secretly every day after classes. They talked about how to stand up to bullies and how to help others. Dren said, "We need to be strong but kind." "Not like before," Core agreed. "Let's show everyone we can be better." First act of kindness. The next day, during recess, Dren saw a small boy named Jin sitting alone. Jin was new to the academy and quiet. Dren approached him carefully. "Hey Jin, want to join us?" Jin looked up, surprised. "Really?" Dren smiled. "Yeah, no one should be alone here." Jin nodded and stood up. From that moment, Jin felt like he belonged. Changing reputation, slowly, Dren and his gang became known for helping others. They stopped the teasing and protected the younger students from troublemakers. Even some teachers noticed the change. Moro smiled quietly as he watched the boys help in the halls. One day, Rick called Dren after class. "You've come a long way," Rick said. "I'm proud of you." Dren felt a warm feeling inside. "Thanks, Teacher Rick. I couldn't have done it without you." A test of character. One afternoon, a new student named Vek arrived. Vek was bigger and stronger than most students. At first, he tried to take control by pushing others around. Dren saw Vek in the hallway, scaring a group of younger students. "Stop right there," Dren said firmly. Vek laughed. "And who's going to stop me?" "You." Dren stood tall. "Yes, me. We don't bully here." Vek smirked but didn't attack. Instead, he challenged Dren to a test, not a fight, but a race around the academy. If Dren won, Vek would stop bullying. If Vek won, Dren and his friends would leave him alone. The race. The next day, students gathered to watch the race. The route was long, through the training grounds and around the gardens. Vek was confident. Dren was nervous but determined. When the race started, Vek quickly took the lead. But Dren didn't give up. He remembered Rick's lessons about patience and strength. Slowly, Dren caught up. Near the finish line, he sprinted with all his might and crossed first. The crowd cheered. Vek, breathing hard, smiled and nodded. "You won. I'll keep my promise." A new friend after the race, Vek joined Dren's group. He began to learn about respect and kindness. Dren said, Strength isn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about doing what's right. Vec listened and changed. A celebration at the end of the week. The Academy held a small celebration for all students who had shown growth and courage. Dren, Cor, Vec and Jin stood together with Rick and Principal. Torvin spoke. This academy is more than a school. It's a place where people learn to be better, kinder, and stronger together. Rick smiled, and every one of you is part of that. The students clapped loudly. Dren looked around at his friends and classmates. He felt proud, the teacher and the students. As the day ended, Rick stood by the window, watching the students play. Dren came up beside him. Teacher Rick, thank you. For what? Rick asked. For teaching me how to be strong in the right way. Rick nodded. Remember, the greatest strength is the courage to change. Dren smiled. I will never forget.